That's
Well,
gonna be a
I was
part
hoping
two.
to get out of here by 4 too.
Well, that's sports fun as well. Give me some discussion before us.
You want, well,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear you introduce the subject and opine on this at length before the county is asked to offer their.
and you do that in the spirit that you recognize that I am hesitant to make speeches.
A little self-realization, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. We'll hear from PDA. I think everybody has got a copy of the request, and there are 3 items on there. And I would just like to say that I think that each of those items, each of the individual requested items needs to be dealt with separately rather than the entire package. But I would like to say, just up front, and this is to Terry and Bill. I kind of find that this request is based on a false premise, and that premise is that somehow the revenues generated from the sale of the old health department building are somehow have been committed to the PDA for whatever purposes they choose to use those. So I am going to deal with, at least personally, these requests as if they were made requests to the general fund of the county, because that's where the revenues from the sale of the health department have been deposited. So if we keep that in mind, that this is not something that has been pool of money that's been committed for whatever purposes the PDA wants to, but rather PDA is coming to the county de novo for requests for these 3 items. I think we can proceed. Is there, I think Terry or Bill, whichever, if you would just, for the sake of completeness, speak to these 3 requests. I think the information you sent out makes them pretty apparent as to what the requests are for, but there may be some questions about the validity of some of the requests. Terry?
Okay. I guess we'll handle each one separately. So the first one in your packet is the request for $20,000 for finishing paving in the Rock Eagle Technology Park on Research Drive, which is when you go into the park and you go right down, halfway down the road. They ran out of funds from the original One Georgia grant, and so the top coat has not been applied. So we were looking for the funds to be able to finish the top coat and then dedicate the roads to the county.
Any questions, Ms. Schwindler, with regard to the paving issue request?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, who actually now owns the road?
Currently, it is in the public-private partnership with the Development Authority and the Fall Line Properties. We initially, as Development Authority, got the One Georgia grant to put in the road infrastructure for the project, and the Fall Line Properties committed the land to the project. And after the funds ran out, that portion was just undone. So we wanted to get that taken care of before there was any more degradation of the road, and then be able to turn it over to the county.
So the Putnam Development Authority does not have clear title to the road?
It actually, the road and the land is in the name of the Development Authority.
My understanding is that Fall Line Property still controls anything that goes on out there. I mean, has the Development Authority attempted, for instance, to clear any of the other properties and prepare them for sale?
At this point, we have not, we haven't had funds to be able to do that. We do have, you know, we have input on the sale of the property, but if the final dollars go to Fall Line Properties, since that was their property to begin with, and then we would receive a small percentage as a.
And in the meantime, no property tax is being paid on it. Is that
That's correct.
Maybe this particular issue is an opportunity to clarify exactly that relationship and have Fall Line Properties actually deed over to the PDA at least a complete and accurate right-of-way to the road, so that the PDA actually owns the road before, and then, you know, as far as the properties themselves are concerned, you know, that does not come up in this request, but I at least would be reluctant to put money into a paving project which potentially could not be turned over to the county. So if you could have perhaps Fall Line Properties, at least as far as the roadway is concerned, what kind of right-of-way easement would we need on that? We need 60 foot or 40 foot or
60 to 80, depends on, well, I'd have to look at the
I mean, this is not an arterial, it's simply a.
I'm sure it was spelled out on the plans what the right of ways were. I'll have to go pull those.
Well, if we could get Fall Line Property to sign over to the PDA the full 60 or 80 foot right of way, whichever is specified in the plan, so that the PDA does have full and simple control of that road, then I think, you know, I at least could, you know,
Yes.
support completing the road. The other issue then comes up is in terms of turning it over to the county. Our ordinance would require then somebody to pay a PE to verify that it meets the county standards, and that would probably involve doing some coring, you know, to make sure that the base is adequate, etc., before it would be turned over to the county for continuing maintenance after that. But I think the first step involved in this is to acquire a fee simple right away.
Well, we had originally, this is probably 8 months ago, talked with them, and they were going to deed the property to us. We actually had paperwork to move forward, and we had the county go out, and Paul sent somebody out to look at the property, and that's when we found out that that tug had not been finished. So they were ready to give that property,
Well,
to us.
Well, let's complete that paperwork.
But it was to the county directly. It wasn't to the PDA, and the PDA was give it to the county. It was directly to the county.
Well,
The county couldn't
no,
accept it.
The county is not at this point ready to accept it, because that would involve accepting the continuing maintenance on that road. First step, I think, is to have Fall Line Property complete the transfer of the right-of-way, complete right-of-way to PDA. And then come back and look at, you know, what costs involved in bringing it up to specifications, and certainly the completion of that.
Okay.
I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, yeah, we'll move forward with that.
Is there any further discussion? You know, if there is no further discussion, The chair would entertain a motion to table this particular request till such time as the PDA has fee simple ownership of that roadway.
Is Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes, sir.
just as a part of this, not speaking directly to the road issue, but to the issues that are for us generally, it's my understanding that the PDA has certain authority to do certain things that the county doesn't have the authority to do. And I'm unclear as to that separation. For instance, if the PDA wanted to use development authority funds that were designated for it to pave the road, they wouldn't have to come to us and ask for
No,
that
you're
authority.
quite right. I mean, the authority does have the right to use their funds, how much ever funds they have, to do whatever projects they choose to do. Be it road repairs, take a trip to Vegas if they want to. Well, no, they can't.
Right.
I was thinking.
And they don't
about
follow,
joining that group.
they don't follow the same rules that we do. That's why I'm just a little confused as to the whole relationships of this, because, in other words, it seems to me it's just wholly a Putnam Development Authority decision whether or not to go forward with something like this in a development that's for attracting business if you want to spend the money. By asking us directly to provide you with the money to do that, I'm just wondering whether or not that doesn't create a situation where we're authorizing something that we don't have the authority to do it. We don't have the authority to say that we can pave that road.
It has to become a county road before you can pave it, like any other road would have to become a county road. That's what the chairman was referring to, because we have standards that you have to meet before you bring a road into your system, basically.
Right.
But once it becomes a county road, you would have the authority to do that. And as I understand what the chairman's discussion was, with Terry, was that the thing to do is for the development authority to get title to the road initially. And then the development authority to make some decisions about what they are going to or not going to do with the road, and then approach the county about the ability for the county to bring it into the county road system. And there would be, have to have some stuff done between now and then to make that possible. You can pave county roads.
Right.
You cannot pave a road that you don't own, and somebody else owns that road right now. They probably can. I say they probably can because not knowing exactly their authority and their relationship with this, where this road is, that all depends. But they do have much more latitude than you do to work deals with potential industries for the county to do such thing as prepare properties, whether it be site or preparation or road preparation or even building a speculation building. They have the ability to do a lot of things like that. You do not. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. So where I get to on the tabling issue, so to come back around to the tabling issue, it seems to me that the question that would come before the Board of County Commissioners eventually would be to take over the road once it has been repaired and once it is in the PDA. In other words, this request would never come back to the Board of County Commissioners. So we wouldn't be tabling this request.
No, it actually could come back to you because one thing you do have the authority to do is have a relationship with your development authority, very likely, when it comes to money issues. In other words, you cannot do certain things with money, but you can have a relationship with them that allows them to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just thinking that in a broader perspective, when we go through the budget process this coming year, that there had been some discussion about formally dedicating either a certain percentage of millage or something like that to the PDA, and I would much rather handle these kinds of things through that sort of budget process than I would through individual requests for itsy bitsy bits of money for one thing or another that we make, where there's confusion about ownership and that sort of thing. I'd rather, rather than be faced with this sort of request, I'd rather just have a dedicated, a dedicated millage for the development authority and agree to that, and they can go about their business as they can legally do under their authority. You know, I mean, I think you're doing a good thing with your remarks, Mr. Chairman. I thought they were to point, you know, but.
Well, my issue is simply that if we were to grant PDA $20,000 for the specific purpose of paving this road, we do not own it.
I would just want to withdraw the request at this time, but that's, rather than table that. Do we have it tabled to a date certain, were you thinking something like that, or are you gonna table it until?
The chair was going to entertain a motion to postpone this request until such time as PDA actually has fee simple title to the right of way of that road.
All right, well, my reservation stands with regard to the taking issue by issue on requests for individual pieces of money, but I have no objection to moving forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone who cares to make a motion to postpone?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion with respect to reason for postponement? Hearing none, District 1?
Aye.
District 2? Aye. District 3?
Aye.
District 4?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I believe the second request has to do with legacy housing.
Yes, we are, in possession of their phase 1 environmental studies, and we're able to move forward with their bond for title paperwork for tax abatement. And, in this request, we're asking for $35,000 to assist with the, fees for the bond for title. And then in the packet, we've included information about the investment and jobs linked to this project, which is phase 1. They've actually been moving at breakneck speed, and they're at 102 employees, and they've done a bunch of different things. Moving forward, they're actually looking at their phase 2 right now, in opening their second line, and they also are working on, in one of their back buildings, a manufacturing facility for some laminated wallboard, which is outside of this project, but they will not be coming and asking for assistance with that. So that will also generate more jobs and revenue for the county. So we were just asking for this to help move this project forward so that we could get that paperwork done, and they could get started with their plans for phase 2.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Please, sir.
The bond title fees, y'all are issuing bonds to help this company come, is that correct?
Yeah, we're working with CPAR Shaw, Dan Craig, to do the bond for title paperwork. And in that paperwork, there will be performance clauses, and they must meet a certain number of jobs and investment by a certain time frame. Otherwise, they will have to pay back part of that tax abatement they've received, so that they're, there's.
So did Dan tell you to come to the county commission and request this $35,000 for bond title fees?
No, we actually originally were gonna ask for $50,000 for some other startup fees in their building, because they were moving so fast. They've already taken care of their initial startup fees, so we decided that, we get talked to about that, and we said that, we'd like to help them, since we couldn't help them with the initial startup.
What I'm trying to do is understand the nature of the request, and it may have come out in more discussion, but in what I'm about to say, maybe because I don't understand the underlying thing that Dan has put together for y'all. But normally, all fees dealing with issuance of bonds is wrapped up into the bonds themselves, in my experience. And so I was trying to figure out how this amount for title bond fees was not taken care of. That may be a question for Dan.
Well, it's because the tax abatement is
Yes.
for the 4 years and it's a 0% tax. So
Mhm.
there's no revenues coming in to pay back the attorneys for their fees.
But they set it up that way.
I wasn't aware that they set it up that way.
Then I'm at a lack of information to understand exactly what was done in the situation, but Dan McCray did all this week.
Well, he hasn't started the paperwork. We're waiting for the phase one environmental study to come back clean before we move forward with all the bond for title paperwork. We didn't want to, as a development authority, take title to land if it wasn't, you know.
So this
clean.
issue of the request that you're making out for bond title fee, you have not discussed with Dan?
No, this is what his fee and then our local attorney's fee for putting the package together and moving it forward.
How do you know this is his fee? Do you have to discuss it with Dan?
Yeah, I discussed it. He said it was, his fee is about $25,000 and, local attorney fees will be around $10,000. Yeah, about $10,000 for the local.
So you have
attorney fees.
discussed this issue with Dan McCray?
Well, we discussed it, but he didn't tell me to go request the funds.
Did he discuss with you how his fees and the local attorney's fees would be paid?
Well, it's either us or the client.
He didn't mention the fact that it would be wrapped up in the bond proceeds itself?
No, because there's no, the bond is just paperwork, it's just title.
Okay.
There's no cash moving. So basically, the development authority takes title to the land.
Right.
The land becomes tax exempt because it's owned by the authority.
Okay.
And then depending on which schedule they're under in tax abatement, they could start, in this case, they're starting at 0 taxes for 4 years. In other cases, our standard fee was, they would have started at 50% and then each year it would go up the percentage till year 10, they'd hit 0.
So you are or are not issuing bonds?
Technically, there's no bond. It's a bond for title. It's just
Okay.
basically paper.
Mr. Chairman, you may have more information than I do on this, or the manager may, I'm not sure. But I have questions that I would like to ask Dan McCray as to what exactly they're doing here and what exactly the request is for and why is this not, I'm not only use the word typical, but why is all the cost involved with this bond matter not wrapped up into the bond itself?
Because
And there may be a very good reason for that. I just don't understand it.
And we've done this
You're not
before
discussing.
with Hayband, with their expansions.
Who paid for the bond title fees in that situation?
I'm not sure because I was not here, that was
Okay.
Roddy in, but either Development Authority or Hayband would have paid those fees because basically the Development Authority has title to their
Right.
product as long as they're receiving the abatement after the 10 years is up and they have achieved all of their milestones, we give it back to them.
Right.
And there's never any money exchanged on our part.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, this may be a very legitimate request and something you actually want to do. I just can't sit here as we have this discussion now and advise you that I understand what it is and what it's for. But there may be a very logical discussion, explanation for I just don't know what it is.
Just, you know, I must have slept through that class in hospital, but, my suggestion is that we allow county attorney and Mr. McCray to get together
Have a
and
discussion.
figure that out and, decide whether, you know, what cash has to be, put up at the time of, writing that bond for title.
And I do have a conference call
and,
scheduled with them on Monday if you'd like to be involved at
What
that.
time?
2 p.m.
Very likely could, yes.
I'll send you a meeting invite.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So I gather that, we have another motion to postpone until the county attorney has ascertained the need for this request.
I guess that if that's, if you would like a motion to that effect. Until we've heard back from our attorney concerning the particulars of the situation. So moved.
Motion second. No further discussion of this, District 1?
Aye.
District two? District three?
Aye.
District four?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Now we have a third request, which has to do with the Titan project. I wasn't aware of it. Is this a PDA project?
This part of the project is PDA.
But the overall Titan, whose project is that?
Well, it's our project. The city had a small piece of the project with their prison deal. And we have, our deal is with the Aluminum Hill and their permanent facilities. The prison is just basically a filming location, and they work some deals with the city. But this is for their location of two buildings. One, which is their phase one, is the sound stage, and that would be in the building that's, when you're looking at the site, is closest to the CVS.
And this is construction and the creation of the sound stage is gonna be at the old aluminum plant?
Yes, the old aluminum plant.
Who owns the old aluminum plant?
It is owned by, actually, they're just closing on it now, and it's gonna be owned by the Rocker family, so the mayor and his son. They are gonna be the property owners. They will be leasing the property to Titan, and they will be, Titan will be the leasee. They will not be able to take advantage of tax abatement because they don't own the property. So we were working with them with startup funds to purchase equipment for them and take title to it and lease back to them for $1, with the payoff being to the Development Authority of jobs and investment within a certain time frame. If they achieve that, then they buy the equipment from us for $1 at the end of the term, which is 5 years. And if they don't meet the numbers, then there'll be a prorated amount that they will pay back. And this project, we have had a very lot of interest from many communities, and actually we've had a lot of interest of businesses trying to come in to support this company. Downtown has had 3 or 4 businesses that are looking to locate because of the Titan and being in the community. So we wanted to get them nailed down and get them into the building so that we could start creating not only the permanent full-time jobs, but the contractor and film jobs that will be coming in for productions. The soundstage will be the first phase, and they will have people coming in for 6, 8, 10 months at a time, doing productions and staying in the community, spending money in the community, in restaurants and retail, that kind of thing.
We have questions for,
I have one, sir.
Commissioner Reed?
What are the investments that Titan has invested into the Putnam County community? I hear, I read what you have. I hear that they're going to bring jobs, or they're going to do this, but what investments been made so far?
Well, so far, the purchase of the land is in process on the Rocker side.
By
So-
the mayor and
Right, under their corporation, so they will be the leaser. Right now, Titan has not moved into the facility, so they have not made any investment as of yet. But in this first phase, which will be through next year, they're planning on $700,000 worth of investments to the property itself, and an additional $600,000 in equipment and furniture and that kind of thing. So we're looking at $1.3 million in the first 3 years, 20 direct full-time permanent jobs, of which they're only bringing 3 people from their other locations. So all the other jobs will be located, from our local people.
I mean, it's quite evident that Legacy has made it an investment, for the community and not for personal gain. But I just don't see that in this project.
Well, they will do the same thing, they just have not moved in. See, Legacy was a very fast moving project, and projects don't typically move that fast. Usually they'll get their, you know, bond paperwork done before they ever start doing jobs. So these guys moved at an exponential pace. But they had facilities that were ready to go. These guys haven't committed the money yet, because they haven't gone into the building yet. And so they haven't been able to do any of the refurbishing or anything.
I have a question from the county attorney.
So about $150,000 and some change to buy sound stage, is that right?
It's the equipment.
Equipment.
The third page is the list of the equipment, but it's equipment that needs to go into the sound stage,
Third page is listed. So who's gonna hold title to the equipment?
the development authority.
The development authority will hold title to the equipment.
Correct. We will lease it to them for $1 a month until the end of their 5-year period, and, they will need to have made a commitment, an investment of $2.7 million.
Is anybody going to insure the equipment?
Typically, they carry insurance for that kind of thing.
Is there an agreement between the development authority and them to carry insurance on the
We will put that into the agreement. We have not had any attorneys draw up the paperwork yet, because we were waiting for the funding approval. We didn't want to have to, you know, have them do something and then change it and incur more fees.
When would the actual purchase of the equipment occur?
As soon as they were ready to get that, equipment installed in the building. So I'm guessing it'll probably just be a couple months once they get into the building and get it cleaned up.
So the purchase of the equipment would occur after they have leased the property?
Yes, yes, so they would have a signed lease, and they would actually be in the process of building out the stage before we purchased it, because there would be no reason to have it sitting, you know, in the building.
And what was the lease amount for the equipment? Is it a payback schedule to haul?
There's no, the payback will be the permanent full-time jobs and the investment in the community. And if they don't need that, then there will be a prorated amount that they will have to pay back to us of the $150,000.
How is that going to be secured?
With the equipment,
With the equipment alone?
yes.
Okay.
How much of this equipment actually has a lifetime in 5 years?
I couldn't hear you.
How much of this equipment actually has a you know,
5-year lifetime.
5-year lifetime?
yeah,
Got it up now.
Will certainly be considerably depreciated at the end of 5 years.
Does anybody have any idea, for instance, if Titan were to go out and lease this equipment from independent corporation? And I assume that some of this fairly expensive equipment, you know, can be leased.
Yeah, I don't know if it can be leased or not. This is the information they gave me was for purchase.
Yeah, but if it could be leased, and I assume that some of it, particularly something that costs $42,000, could probably be leased. Things like servers can certainly be leased. You know, does anybody have any idea what the commercial rate for leasing these things would be? You think it might be more than $1 a month?
Well, yeah, you have to get something back for what you're giving it for. And what we're giving back is the full-time permanent jobs, the contract jobs, and the investment in the community. It's the same thing we would get if we did tax abatement. But since they don't own real property, we can't give them a tax abatement.
Let me ask the the county attorney this question. Suppose the PDA owns this equipment and leases it to Titan, okay? Will, under the statute for the PDA, exempt this from personal property tax?
I do not know the answer to that question sitting here. It's possible that it could be done that way. This goes a little bit back to the authority of the PDA, which Bill's one that we were talking about earlier for Georgia Power stuff is separate, as I understand it. This was created by the Putnam County Board of Commissioners, correct?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman. I think it could be possible if the paperwork is done right between the development authority and the company, but I'm not positive. So I have to dig into it a little deeper.
I'm aware that under the authorities of the Putnam Development Authority for real property, if it is leased for more than a year, that it would not be exempt from tax.
And we would not be
Property
asking,
tax.
we would not be asking for abatement on
Well, no,
those
I'm
taxes.
just wondering if this equipment will be exempted under the PDA.
Usually the abatement process of taxes follows bonds. usually.
Right, and we're not doing
Yeah,
that.
and so my suspicion would be just sitting here making an educated guess probably would not be exempt from property taxes, but I'm not positive about that. Now, the question would be, if the payroll development authority owns it, are they subject to property taxes? If the company owns it, they're probably not exempt unless it would work out with a deal of some sort of abatement. But if the payroll development authority owns it, I'm not sure if they're a taxable entity. So they may not be subject to property taxes.
But if they lease it,
If they lease it, does it become, who owns it at that point? I think technically the development authority would probably still own it, and if they were not subject to county taxes, the property may not be.
well, as I say, I know with regard to real property, if the development authority leases it for more than a year, that it is subject to property tax.
Because usually those leases, those long-term leases involve the company that is leasing it, taking over the property from a lease-to-own situation. So you really have more of a sale than you do a true lease. So I would
And what
suspect.
we're talking about here is, as I understand it, that if they meet the commitments at the end of the period of 5 years, that they will basically, for $1, own the equipment.
So it is a lease-to-own situation.
Yes.
It's not a pure lease. And that's a good question, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure it's in here.
And we have planned on not asking for any abatement on the taxes, so the community would still be receiving tax on that equipment. The entire time.
Commissioner Reed, you know.
But lease to own, I don't see anywhere in here where it says lease to own. It just says lease to Titan.
Well, we would put that into our legal paperwork. I could add that in here now, but it will be in our legal paperwork.
And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, based on the no taxes and if they're not going to have to do it and what have you, and looking at all of this, then this particular company would have all the perks, if you will, of building their business without making an investment in Putnam County for at least 3 years, right?
They have to bring the jobs here, they have to make the investment in those buildings, in that first building. Because you can't have a soundstage in the building as it is. You have to build it out, put the, wall
They
boards.
are building their company on the county's dime, or whatever's done, up until 3 years. In 3 years, then they have to say, okay, our 3 years is up, we gotta put up, and we got to show that we earned this. Now, it's 3 years. 3 years have gone by, then we've got to move forward with what's in the lease agreement or the agreement between PDA and Titan, whomever, or the agreement between the county and PDA and Titan,
No,
whatever.
the 3 years is where they will have committed and invested the 1.3 million. It has to be complete by the 3rd year.
But within that 3 years, They don't have to hire about one person.
Yes, they have to be up to the 20 full-time employees by that third year. And we can put that in the contract, have a stepped commitment, so at 3 years, they have to be at this number or they pay some money back. And then at 5 years, they have to be at this number.
Because that's not what this is saying. It's saying.
This is just a request, this is not a legal document, I would have attorneys draw this
I
up.
wouldn't know what I'm voting on.
Okay.
Okay.
But they would start immediately. They actually have, people asking to film in their soundstage already that they don't have built yet. So they are chomping at the bit to get this started. They need and want to get that construction started.
Well, question, if, you know, the soundstage and all that, I can understand. But if this is a company that is this company is already established in Savannah. I've done my research, okay?
Mhm.
So this company is already established in Savannah. So why are we leasing equipment? Don't they have equipment?
No, you see, their company that is actually Tybee Island, is Titan Creates, which is the post-production work and the, and also the branding part of their company. This is the new division that they've created as pictures that is coming here. And so they don't have a soundstage down there. They have an office with computers and people are doing post-production work, editing and that kind of thing on the computers. They are not doing, any filming they do is out in, the street or on location at a place. They don't have a physical facility. And that's what this will be a facility that's set up and they can change, they can shoot a game show or they can shoot a sitcom and change it up as they go. And all the equipment is permanent and it's in there. So not only can they film productions, but they can have other companies come in and film productions.
I have not relied on people to tell me about I've done my research. So I know what this is.
Well, they don't have soundstage facilities currently. They wanted to expand and they were going to go to Savannah and they couldn't find a space there because there's so much demand right now in Savannah for space, and found that this was a much more economical location to film, and also the fact that in our surrounding areas we have so many options for on-site filming locations, from the lakes to the history to the different government facilities. They just were filming in Milledgeville in the old state prison or hospital down there. So they are already working in this area. They just don't have the soundstage capability yet until we get them into a building, which there was some slow process. There was some title issues that slowed up their whole process of getting in the building, so.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? How long is the lease gonna be for the building? 5-year lease?
I'm not sure. I think
Bill says 5 years.
No, the equipment is for 5 years. I think the lease was a 10 or 15 year.
10 or 15 years?
But that lease
The
is not,
building lease.
that lease has not been signed yet, is that correct?
I don't believe so. I think they're now lining up everything because they've got the title cleared.
And,
And I can get that information.
but, without looking at the leasing arrangement, I wouldn't know if they say our Titan is going to invest $700,000 in building a soundstage, who will own that soundstage? Will that be the Rocker family or will that be Titan? How does that work out? We are putting equipment into a facility that is actually owned by a private individual. I have some serious question about. Now, the PDA can do whatever you want with your funds, okay? So, irrespective of this request, if you have $155,000, go ahead and buy the equipment and lease it to Titan. You don't need our permission to do that. On the other hand, if you are asking the county to put $155,000 of general fund money up for this project, then I think the commission deserves to have a little bit more information about exactly, what is our securitization for investing the taxpayers' money in this.
So we'll need a copy of the building lease agreement and, who will own the equipment after the tenant, or who will own the tenant improvements, basically, of the building. What other information would you like to see?
Who will insure the property? Who will insure the property?
Okay.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Webster.
President West.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. The $700,000 real estate improvement, $600,000 for furniture, who came up with those numbers? Was that PDA or Titan?
That was Titan.
Okay, looking at it, it looks like they have to invest approximately $1.3 million before the leased equipment would be needed or could be used. Is that correct?
Yeah, they would have to be substantially complete with the real estate improvements to be able to mount equipment and use the equipment in the facility.
So couldn't we use that as something of a timetable as to whether or not they're serious about this? In other words, if they were to show me that they've invested $1.3 million, then I would be very amenable to approximately 10% of that in equipment that's going to be bond for title.
And it won't be a typical bond for title.
I understand that. It's more of just a strictly a lease. So I guess an additional question would be, when do they actually need the equipment that y'all are going to be buying? Because it appears that would be the last thing they would need, because why would you need monitors and film stuff if you haven't already done all the other improvements?
Right, if you can't get into the building and actually use it.
So I would think that a investment of $1 million would show that they're serious or something like that. So I'm not hard over. I understand the issues about are we investing in things for private property and all that. What I would be interested in is if they have shown a commitment to invest money in Putnam County, then I would be amenable to supporting the option for the equipment. And
Yeah,
so,
and we can definitely work that into the legal document, and yeah, we definitely work that in.
Really, what the commissioner is saying is show me the money. And then the commission will consider. And again, I come back to the gentleman from the 3rd District's point about, would it not be better to, just provide the PDA with funds during the budgeting process, as opposed to, coming with sort of hat in hand for every nickel and dime thing that is required here. And
Mr. Chairman, if I might just speak to that just briefly. The separation between the PDA and the county commissioners is there for a reason. And this sort of does away with that separation. When the PDA can do things that the county can't do, but then you come to us and ask us specifically for money for things that the county can't do. It just, to me, just gets around our responsibility to the taxpayers. I mean, I can only imagine the number of requests that are going to be as the economy begins to improve, the economic situation begins to improve, that I'm going to build a X. And boy, I could sure use the equipment to outfit that. And then we've stuck making decisions, yes or no, this project or that project, where I think those decisions more rightly should be the realm of the development authority, which has a budget that they have to live within. I mean, after all, we're $1.4 million in the red right now each year, and that situation is going to get worse as we run through our savings. So we need to have a budget that we can count on, and you need to have a budget that you can count on, and then we both need to act within that. Rather than just have a continuing thing about, okay, here we got a project, what do you think of this? Is this worthy? And then we have to make a decision to come up with out of budget money to pay for things. I'm just uncomfortable with the way it's happening, not necessarily with the decisions that the PDA would make with money that is distributed to it legally through our budget
Right,
process.
and typically we would do a tax abatement, for a project that would come up, with, the correct number of jobs and investment. But this doesn't fall under that, and we can't forecast which project opportunities we have out there. We have no idea who's gonna come to us next.
Well,
It
this-
could be a
this-
distribution company with 55 employees and $10 million in investment. We have no idea who's gonna come.
Well, I understand. I really would rather take up funding for the PDA, Mr. Chairman, during the budget process rather than on an individual project basis. And I'm wondering whether or not the PDA has the wherewithal at this point to meet some of these needs at this point within the money that has already been allocated to them, and then to come to us during the budgeting process and request a set budget for 2017. So I would just rather that's all I said, I would rather take care of it that way, so that we have surety of what the budget is for the development authority. The development authority knows what its budget is, and then we can count on that, because we are stressed money-wise, and it just seems to me if we start doing these sorts of things, we'll be looking at one after another. Every commercial enterprise that wants to get started in Putnam County is going to be looking for these types of improvements. It just could be, how do we make those decisions?
Well,
Yeah.
not everyone would qualify. You have to have, it has to be a project of significance and, investment and if you're investing $50,000 in the community, that doesn't get you.
Well, no, I understand that we are seeing, well,
And
I've said-
this not only brings us the jobs and the investment, it brings us the taxes, but then it also has, in the film industry, there's such a multiplier effect of all the other jobs and other spending that comes along with it.
Right.
Mr. Attorney, you had something?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, to what the Commissioner from the 3rd District was saying, it is really I hear two questions. One's a smart business decision. The other is a legal question. From strictly the legal standpoint, I don't have any problem with what the development authority is coming to you about right now. Because in my experience, there are multiple ways for a county commission to fund a development authority. One has been referenced, I believe, and that is, in some instances, depending on how the authority was created and what you choose to do, you can dedicate a mill or a percentage of the mill, and then they have an annual budget that they work within. But even in those situations, sometimes that development authority, when it merits, come back to the county for other funding issues. And you do have the authority from the general fund or other locations to give monies to a development authority, generally speaking, within some constraints, to work on specific projects. So the commissioner is exactly right in that you want to go through an organized process, because you do have to predict the budget, and you don't want to have to get hit with things in the mid-year. But from a purely legal standpoint, you could fund them through a dedicated millage rate and through them coming back to you occasionally for a special request, given the gravity of how much it may benefit the county. So the latter is probably better. That is an organized budgeting process, but it's a legal matter. There is no problem with a special funding request, generally speaking, from the development board.
Thank you.
And I can add that, this project, $150,000 is more than my entire annual budget. I only get $125,000 this year. I think I got $142,000 the prior year. So, and that includes everything from, expenses and salaries and everything.
Well,
This is economic development. This is the whole reason why we have the development authority, is to create the jobs and investment in the community.
so you see this as a replacement, because it's a leased piece of property rather than an owned piece of property by the tenant who's bringing the jobs. You see this as the replacement for the tax abatement
Yes.
that they might have gotten if they purchased the building,
Correct.
operated the business under those circumstances.
Correct.
So then the amount that we should be looking at would be no more, should be approximately what they would get if there was a tax abatement based on the number of jobs that they're bringing or the amount of economic activity.
Right, and I just did a quick calculation of what their taxes would be over the 10 years with the investment of both of their phases together, which would be, you know, the $2.7 million investment, and they would pay city, county, school taxes a total of $305,000 over that 10 years.
Yeah, but of
And they will
course,
still be paying
the tax,
that.
the
They will
tax,
be
the
paying
tax
that
abatement,
regardless of this lease, but they will also be bringing us the
the
jobs.
tax abatement, for instance, to legacy, does that include an abatement of school taxes?
No, there's no school taxes, so without the school taxes, and they're still gonna be paying it, because they're not getting abatement on this project.
Right, but,
It
you know,
would be-
in the calculation for Titan, over a 10-year period, the tax abatement would be significantly less than $300,000.
It will be, $159,000 and change is what they're gonna be paying us in taxes.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Reed?
Ms. Barber, will you scroll up for one, please? Down, yes, oh, down, come on. To, there is okay, that's it. You know, I'm just thinking, I read the last paragraph, and then you talk about the taxes to be paid. I understand what you just said, the taxes will be paid by the company, but if you're looking at this, you say that we don't expect any new households or no children in school ahead. So therefore, again, I say, this is, right now, looking at that, it's not a real investment in the community.
Well, they're gonna be using our employees here. They're not gonna be adding any impact for schools, because the people that are coming here are the older people in their company. They don't have any kids, so they're not gonna be adding to our infrastructure.
But they're gonna need houses. And you say no new houses.
They're already, the one guy's already purchased a house that was out there on the lake. But there's no impact at schools. I had Jim Lovett with Georgia Powers Economic Development do the LOCI on just the forecast of investment and jobs, and he forecasted that our break even would be between years 5 and 6.
Mr. Chairman, I just feel that, like the other two, there are some unanswered questions here, and I don't, this is me personally, I'm not making a motion or anything, but it's like what we want coming from the Development Authority and what we're actually getting. And what we want is explained like, you know, it's almost like a wish list. It's all right, yay, you're happy because this is coming, but there's no clear-cut evidence as to whether or not this is going to happen. And to really put the county on the line for that, I have some reservations until we get some other questions answered. Until we see some real effort made on the part of this private company.
In most cases,
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask our attorney a question, please.
Yes, sir.
Since we're on to the legal part of this, is it true that according to when the Development Authority was organized, there is a different set of rules for one set of years versus another?
It can be, yes. The Development Authority in all in Georgia has undergone changes over a 50, 60-year period. There was a time where development authorities could be created by the legislature. I think they still can. They also could be created by something called local constitutional amendment, which sounds like what Bill's Development Authority is, the one that dealt with the construction of the Georgia Power Plant, from what I can tell.
we are constitutional authority.
Also,
That
created
we
by
are.
law?
The Development Authority of Putnam County is
This was
statutory.
created as a local constitutional amendment in 1968 and continued as a local act.
So does Putnam County have two development authorities
Yes.
or one?
No,
Two.
well, technically, we are the development authority, the constitutional authority that does economic development. the Development Authority of Putnam County was only created for the Georgia Power bond issuance.
So does Putnam County have two development authorities
Yes.
or one?
Well, technically, there's two. Now, we're constitutional, they're statutory. And the only thing they can do is issue bonds for Georgia Power.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure which one we're talking about. Which one was created by 1968 by which of
That would be us.
Bill or Terry? That's what I said, Bill or Terry.
Mine.
Bills and Terry's. Now,
Well,
Terry's.
Created at the same time, about the same act.
No.
No.
One, this is one.
See, Bill is on both the
Bill's
PPA
on both.
and the DPA.
Bill's on both, yeah.
All right, this is bill number one, this is bill number two, right here. So we're talking about bill number two now, the one that.
From the beginning of this session, before the meeting before, we were talking about the statutory one
Yes,
for the
yes.
bonds. But everything since we started the session has been about the constitutional authority and,
That was created by a local vote of the people of Putnam County?
and then to the constitution.
The answer, Mr. Vice Chairman, that there are different rules that could apply to this one than the ones that are in the statute right now. And you have to figure out what those are, and I would have to know, I'd have to actually go through this to answer some of the questions you're probably gonna ask, but I think your initial question was, are there two sets of rules? Yes, can be two sets of rules. I don't know if there are two sets of rules for this one, though.
And it's my understanding that the original creation in 1968 is in fact the rules in which current authority applies. 5-member board, no commissioners on it. They can request, they don't have a tax levying authority.
I'll give you this analogy. A lot of the rules are same for cities and counties. The open records request laws that apply to you apply to the city council. The ability to levy property taxes is the same as city council, same as you. But then there are some distinct differences between city governments and county governments. And that's kind of how it is with development authorities when they were created. Currently, if you created one today, you would be clear there are rules that would operate under the Georgia statute. If this thing was created back in 1968 by local constitutional act, there are going to be some differences of how one would be if Putnam County created one today by act of this board commission. Now, what those exact differences are is what I'd have to research to be able to tell you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Good question.
Commissioner Ray?
I understand the county attorney will research it, that is good, but, there may be some prior information, because under 3 different chairmen now, 3 different attorneys, we've discussed this before. The same thing, and there may be some documents or some notes on it, but I do appreciate the fact that you will research it again and see what.
I can tell you, generally speaking, though, as I mentioned once a little earlier, the kind of request that the development authorities bring to you is very common in other local governments that I work for. What is different, it could be the rules that they have to operate under and also how they're funded. I have other local governments where the development authority has a dedicated $1 million, for example, and then they spend that money, but however, they do occasionally come back to the local government with specific requests. Sometimes it's road building, because the county has road building equipment. Sometimes it's tax abatement, because it's a big industry and it's beyond their budget process. So although there are a lot of questions about which specific rules may apply to them, how this thing is structured, which gets into the business decision that the Commissioner from the 3rd District was talking about, there is nothing in particular unusual, though, about this type of request from what I have experienced. So I want to temper what I say with the fact that you're asking business questions, part of what you're asking now, mixed in with legal things and what can and can't be done. Usually, for example, when you do the reason you do tax abatement for the purchase of property is because when a business purchases a piece of property, they just make a big investment in the community. And they can't walk away from that near as easily, and that's your satisfaction going forward, that there will be jobs created. In this situation, you have a business, for reasons that could be very wise to them and for the creation of their company here, are going to lease property. If that lease agreement is pretty strong and holds them to the property for a while without some penalties for leaving early, then you get similar sureties that you would get if they had purchased the property. those devils are in those details, the details are in of what the legal documents say, and it sounds like that's in the process of being worked out, but not completely worked out as of yet. So you actually, although they're leasing the property, could have some pretty good assurances that they're gonna be here for a while, just as they purchase it. We just don't know that sitting here right now, we'll have to tell from the discussion.
But I can get a copy.
If I could, perhaps make a suggestion, that conforms both to the gentleman from the 4th District and the gentleman from the 3rd District comments, as well as the lady from the 2nd District. What it appears to me now is that Titan has not yet signed a lease. We don't know what's in that lease. Does it bind the company to the community with penalties for just pulling up? We do not know yet how soon they are actually going to invest dollars in improving that property and building the soundstage. And we are, I think, within the next month or two, going to be going through our budgeting process for fiscal 2017. I think it would be much better if we delay any further discussion of this until that budgeting process. By that time, we should know at least what is in that lease, how strong that lease is, and perhaps even have the opportunity to see that dollars have been spent by Titan in improving that property going forward. I don't think that delaying allocating funds for the purchase of this equipment is going to delay Titan, from going ahead with their business plan, since they won't need this equipment certainly for, I would suspect, perhaps not even, maybe even as long as a year from now, by the time they get a soundstage built. I don't know how long it takes to do that.
Because the facility, the building structure is there, it should only be a few months.
Well,
Supposedly they're starting 2 films by September, in September. That's my understanding. One of them is a horror movie, and we met one of the actors and all that here at the River Cut. So we should see something.
Anybody present today?
I'm sorry?
Be any of the horror characters present?
They haven't put out a casting call yet.
They hired 2 camp girls, I know that, and I don't know who else.
Yeah, I think there are an awful lot of unanswered questions here, and to the gentleman from the 3rd District's point, I would tend to at least agree that funds need to be allocated in a budgeting process and not tie the county commission's hands nor the PDA's hands in terms of how those funds are spent. In the interim, as I said before, the PDA has funds. They can spend those funds as they see fit. So if there's a question of having to front load something, I think the PDA is well within their authority to go ahead and do so. Pending our budgeting process and decisions about these requests. So I don't know how the commission wishes to proceed with regard to this particular request, but the chair is open to any motions that anybody wishes to bring forward.
The only thing that I would say, Mr. Chairman, I understand the reservations, and I certainly agree with those. What I would like to see if we could have a consensus to pass on to the Development Authority, that as a general thought, that if Titan were to meet all of the expectations that they've kind of outlined here, that when they come to us for potentially more than their budget would allow, that we're not gonna just turn them down. In other words, can we have some consensus that in conceptual terms, that we agree that we could support helping out the Titan folks? Because I would hate for them to go through all of this and then come back to us and we'd say, no, we're not gonna fund it.
At this point, just from my personal perspective, Commissioner, I don't have enough information to make even that strong opinion. As I say, I really would like to know how strong that lease is. And I also would like to see how many dollars are spent between now and the 1st of September by Titan to improve that project.
And I didn't mean to suggest that those questions should be answered. But if all of those questions all those questions and concerns were adequately responded to, and it would be the position of this board that we would not provide any money, then I think they need to know that.
Mr. Chairman, help me understand what you were saying. You was saying the PDA have the right to go ahead on do what they're gonna do.
If PDA has funds,
Right.
they can spend those funds.
If they get started and come back to us, are we assuring them that we still going back? We're not.
At this point,
That was I couldn't understand you saying PDA got the right to go ahead and do this. But, so, they're dangling on the butt.
And I'm saying that unless and until, I have satisfactory answers to the strength of the lease and an actual dollar commitment, that at this point, I could not even,
So we'll postpone our action, but they can go ahead.
And the information you need a copy of the building lease agreement, information on who keeps the tenant improvements to the building, who's insuring the property, who's insuring the equipment, and how much investment they'll make by September 1st. Are all those the items, or is there anything
well,
else?
September 1st has to do with the fact that this board is going to have to set our budget by then. And to what extent we include additional funding for the PDA for this project, or I suppose once we allocate money to the PDA has the option of spending that money on whatever project or projects they see fit. So if we add $150,000 to the PDA budget for next year, and you decide, well, we're not really going to back Titan, we're going to use that $150,000 for something else which has a higher priority for us, that is your option.
So, Mr. Chairman, would I be in order if I made a motion that we table this until table this discussion and let it be included in our budget discussions? Of course, that's not worded correctly, but that's what I was.
I think that motion would be,
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Can I have a rereading of the motion?
That we were tabling this
The
discussion.
motion is to postpone the consideration of additional funding for the PDA until our budgeting process.
Second.
Any further discussion about that? Hearing none, District 1?
Right.
District 2?
Aye.
District 3?
Aye.
District 4?
No.
Chair votes aye. The county attorney is to get with Ms. McRae and figure out the business about the bond for title. PDA will proceed, hopefully, with Fall Line property and get fee simple title to the right of way of the road. And then we will further consider costs for bringing it up to the county standard. And as step number 3 in that, county will, according to our ordinances, consider adopting it as a county road for continuing. Don't just smirk at me, Mr. Mayor.
We want good roads, only good ones.
We only want good.
Mr. Chairman,
And we will consider allocation,
we voted already.
yeah,
It's over.
I'm just trying to recap. And we will consider
Post-game
Allocation.
recap.
additional funds to TDA during the budget process.
Motion.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
District 1. District 2. District 3. District 4.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. I just have no idea what